Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to EPA. My name is Travis Voiles. I'm the Associate Deputy Administrator here at EPA, and just want to thank you all for taking the time of your afternoon to join us to a very special announcement today. Many of you were here with us in 2019, and it's just a good full circle moment here under Administrator Lee Zeldin's leadership to have you here back with us to mark this moment. So thank you for all of your support over the years, the scientific community, the advocacy community, the EPA staff that have worked on this issue, and I am pleased to welcome not our Beagle friend here, but the administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin.
Thank you to Travis Voiles. You know what? I had a flashback. It was about a year ago when the president was first sworn in. Travis was one of the first people here in the building. I had an assignment at one point in the Army where the unit was going through a transition, and there's these different staff officer positions, like they call it an S1, an S2, an S3, S4. Any military veterans would be familiar with these references, and they have different jobs. Someone's in charge of personnel or the mission or intelligence, but because we were so short-staffed, we had one officer who was the unit's S1, S2, S3, S4, S6, and I don't know how he did it. He was amazing at all of those jobs, and this was this is what Travis had signed up for. Unfortunately for him, when he came in, he was not just serving in his position, but for months until our great Deputy Administrator Dave Fatui was confirmed. Travis was serving as our Deputy Administrator as well as so many other responsibilities, and this is something that close to his heart. So it's great to have Travis here, and I thank him for his efforts to bring back a very important initiative here at the agency, something that so many of you here in this room are filled with great pride to see these advancements in the weeks and the months and the years that are ahead, to be able to achieve these goals that we're here to discuss, and the cause that brings us all together. Right after the president was, right after he had nominated me and the announcement came out, I immediately heard from Edie Falco, who I worked with when I was in Congress, and she's a very proud member of the PETA community, and just instantly talking about this topic and how important it was to be able to bring this effort back. During my time in Congress, I was working very closely with the White Coat Waste, a great organization that has done amazing work to get bills and resolutions and caucuses and public events done, bringing together members in the House and the Senate to get great work done. And the Humane Society, which has changed names to Humane World Action Fund, they have always been there to rally support on both sides of the aisle. One of the resolutions I had supported in Congress was to end the dog meat trade practices in Asia, and the Humane Society at the time did a really good job in helping to rally up so many members of Congress to be able to make that possible. And they actually have a big festival over there in China where it's like 10,000 dogs and cats were murdered, something that us as Americans, you can't even fathom, and it's just it's like a standard practice overseas that is acceptable to them, but it's not acceptable to us. And it's great for us to find opportunities to be able to weigh in on these topics wherever we could. We're joined here by the former EPA Administrator, Andrew Wheeler. And when Andrew was serving here during his time as administrator, he set out a bold goal working with political and career staff here at the agency to reduce animal testing. He wanted to completely phase it out of the agency, well, as quickly as possible, set a goal of 2035, and made great progress in achieving those results quickly. Unfortunately, there was a period of time after Administrator Wheeler's departure where these deadlines were, and the phase down was not being pursued the way that we needed it to. So we inherited a situation where we had to get this back on track. And over the course of 2025, there's been great progress from some of our organizations that were here helping with adoption, some of our EPA staffers assisting with adoptions, and finding ways inside of the agency to be able to reduce the amount of animal testing that was done here. So today's announcement is not the start of an effort by this administration to phase out animal testing. We've been working on it all year, but what we are here to do is to sign a memorandum to bring back officially the initiative of Administrator Wheeler from his term as administrator to phase out animal testing here at EPA by 2035. Now, there are certain chemicals that there are statutory regulatory requirements for the use of animals. However, what we have found just over the last year, and we're confident we will continue to find in the weeks and the months ahead, are new technologies, new alternative methods that allow us to reduce animal testing on something that might be required today, but it may not be necessary just a few months from now. So we're going to continue to aggressively pursue our goals in identifying what's referred to as NAMs and new innovation, new initiative to address even where an animal is required today so that we can get to this goal of fully phasing out animal testing here at the agency by 2035. Just to share a few numbers. This is from 2025. For the first time ever, EPA's Office of Pollution Prevention and Toxics used high-quality alternative scientific methods to animal testing in its cancer evaluations for 2 phthalate chemicals, sparing an estimated 1,600 mice and rats from undergoing lab experiments. EPA also developed an alternative non-animal testing framework for identifying skin irritation and corrosion hazards in chemicals that describes the agency's preference for studies for using alternatives to testing live rabbits. This new framework supports EPA's mandate under the Toxic Substances Control Act to identify and develop alternatives to animal testing. So that was 2016 when TSCA was coming through Congress. This requirement was put into law, and our office here at EPA has been working to fulfill that. On April 28th, EPA initiated the first ever adoption program for animals no longer needed for research purposes at EPA's premier research laboratory in Research Triangle Park in North Carolina, which houses numerous agency scientists. Several animals, including 2 rabbits, no longer needed for research purposes, have been adopted by staff affiliated with EPA's Research Triangle Park. EPA's Office of Applied Science and Environmental Solutions will be leading in this effort. And again, thank you so much to all of you for being here for today's announcement. We are all excited that you are here. And without any further ado, it's going to be my honor to introduce EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler from President Trump's first term, who has been a big help to me. As soon as I was nominated, many meetings and conversations where he was assisting with important advice and lay of the land so that we can hit the ground running. And I just want to say, as far as our team here, both political and career staff, for those of you from outside of EPA and for the members of the media and others who are tuning in at home, this agency really has an exceptional team here. I had a meeting yesterday that included 4 scientists from the Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention. They've been at the agency for 20, 25, 30 years. And we're talking about people with PhD degrees and law degrees, and they could go out and make a whole lot of money outside of this agency, but they believe in the agency's core mission of protecting human health and the environment. They love their job, and they are darn good at it. I am grateful to everyone here who works at EPA for their efforts. I'm honored to be able to lead this agency, and without any further ado, a past leader of our agency, EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler.
Thank you, everyone, and it's great to be back home again. In just a couple of minutes, I'd like to go in reverse chronology. First, I want to thank Administrator Lee Zeldin for his leadership and for reinstating the ban and his leadership on this issue, which goes back, as he said, years. It is the right thing to do. And Administrator, with everything you have planned over the next 3 years, I think you're going to get tired of hearing people telling you you're doing the right thing, because you're going to be hearing it a lot over the next 3 years. In 2023, the Biden administration, through its ORD political leadership, removed the dates, including 2035, from our phase-out, saying that the science isn't there yet. Unless you set deadlines, you will never reach your goal, and the goal becomes meaningless. In 2019, when I set the policy, I was actually attacked by some of the environmental groups. In fact, I'll name them. No longer the administrator, I can do that. The Union of Concerned Scientists and NRDC both said that I was doing it on behalf of the chemical industry. One environmentalist told the press that I must have been bought and paid for by the industry. In 1987, however, I wrote an op-ed in my college newspaper in honor of my mother, where I called for the phasing out of animal testing. I want to assure everyone that I got through college on scholarships and loans with no contributions from the chemical industry. And while I have always practiced long-term professional planning, I was not planning in 1987 that I would be EPA Administrator 32 years later. Phasing out and banning animal testing is challenging, and it won't be easy, but it is the morally correct thing to do. Scientists and policymakers can always come up with excuses to delay, just like they did during the Biden administration. But doing the morally correct thing isn't always easy, but it's always the right thing to do. And if anyone would like to work with me to codify this in legislation so that future administrations won't backtrack, and yes, I'm looking at you, Justin, I'm happy to work on that. Just let me know. Gandhi said, "The greatness of a nation can be judged by the way its animals are treated." And we're making incredible progress here today. Again, thank you, Administrator Zeldin, for your leadership on this issue. And now it's my honor to introduce Justin Goodman from the White Coat Waste Project. I happily serve on the advisory board for White Coat Waste. They do incredible work. If you aren't familiar with the organization, please get to know them. Justin.
I'm very proud to be standing here today to celebrate this momentous announcement along two of my absolute heroes, Administrator Lee Zeldin and former Administrator Andrew Wheeler, who've made history under both Trump administrations to end wasteful, outdated, and cruel taxpayer-funded animal testing. In 2019, my watchdog group, White Coat Waste, and I had the honor of working with Administrator Wheeler to launch his landmark plan to eliminate animal testing on dogs, rabbits, mice, and other mammals by 2035. Administrator Wheeler's visionary plan to cut EPA animal testing by 30% by 2025, which I believe this goal has now been met under Administrator Zeldin, and eliminate it entirely by 2035 marked the first time in history that a federal agency set a hard deadline to end animal testing. On his final day in office in January 2021, Administrator Wheeler even directed the EPA to retire rabbits who had spent years locked in a North Carolina testing lab that we had exposed. For years, officials across the government talked about the wastefulness of the EPA's animal testing. But Andrew Wheeler and the Trump administration had the political will to actually do something about it. Unfortunately, literally within weeks of taking office, the Biden EPA started to reverse course. They refused to adopt out the rabbits that Andrew had ordered to be retired, and they killed them instead. Environmental groups pressured the Biden EPA to scrap the phase-out and expand animal testing, literally saying that it needed to be done for environmental justice reasons, and that is a quote. By the end of 2021, the timelines set under Administrator Wheeler and the Trump administration were completely stripped out of the plan. Then, with no end in sight, we documented how the Biden EPA continued to make animals fat with unhealthy diets and then lock them alone in hot cages to allegedly mimic the effects of climate change on mental health in obese people. They forced animals to inhale firearms emissions from rifles and handguns, and even enforced outdated EPA red tape that forced companies to poison puppies with pesticides. The wasteful Biden EPA animal testing is not the gold standard science that this administration is committed to. It's fool's gold. For years, with Administrator Wheeler's help, we've been leading a bipartisan effort uniting Republicans and Democrats in Congress to hold the agency accountable for backpedaling and restore the Trump-era deadlines. When President Trump was reelected and he nominated Lee Zeldin to lead the EPA, we knew a course correction was coming imminently, especially because as a congressman, White Coat Waste awarded Mr. Zeldin for helping us enact a first-in-government policy that had completely eliminated cruel dog testing at the Department of Veterans Affairs. And as we'd hoped, as EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin quickly pledged to get the animal testing phase-out back on track. In less than a year, his EPA has adopted out the remaining rabbits that Andrew Wheeler set in motion in 2019. He shut down wasteful animal tests across the agency, launched this historic adoption program, even adopting out rats and fish. That might be a first across the entire federal government. And officially today reinstates the 2035 phase-out plan. Promises made, promises kept. Under both Trump administrations, the EPA's initiatives to end animal testing have set the standard for every single other federal agency to follow. Thank you, Administrator Zeldin, for your leadership in restoring common sense policies that save animals, cut senseless spending, and eliminate government waste. Thanks very much.
Now we'll welcome up Sarah from the Humane World Action Fund.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. I say good afternoon to you all. It is really delightful to be here once again. Administrator Zeldin, this recommitment is meaningful to Americans across the board, not just animal protection advocates, but the scientists who toil away to ensure that these new methods are actually brought to the federal agencies and uptaken by the regulated industries. I'm going to take a step back, because some of us have been doing this a long, long time. You know Andy. About 30 years ago, EPA was rolling out something it called the High Production Volume Chemical Program. Some of us referred to it as the High Production Chemical Testing Program, because the vast majority of what the agency was calling for were new animal tests on tens of thousands of chemicals. And from our perspective, it was the first opportunity to actually engage with that administration and with EPA, have a sit down and have a series of discussions in an honest way about what new methods could be utilized to replace some of that animal testing. By gosh, we were successful. In 2000, an agreement was rolled out, and if it hadn't been for our friends in the chemical industry joining with animal protection advocates, it's likely it wouldn't have happened. But we know to date that it's reduced by tens of thousands the numbers of animals used in that program. Now that's just reduction. I call it our reduction in animal testing phase. Then we move on to 2016. We had an opportunity to work with various stakeholders in a bipartisan fashion, led by many of the people in this room, to reauthorize the Toxic Substances Control Act. And there is landmark statutory language within that act that calls for animal testing as a last resort. I call that our last resort phase. And when I think about it, and we know that up to 80,000 chemicals are regulated under TSCA, what we are aware of to date is we are looking at a variety of species of animals, including fish, that have been reduced in terms of the numbers and the types of suffering associated with it. I was very proud that we were able to accomplish that after almost a 2-decade battle. Once again, the last resort phase. 2019, we moved on to something far more exciting for advocates in this room. That's the end of animal testing phase. And that opportunity was presented to us, as we well know, by Administrator Wheeler, in a strong statement tied to concrete deadlines, because he's right. Nothing good ever happens if you don't attach it to a deadline. We know how the federal government works. It's critically important to do so. Here we are. Once again, back on track. We have an opportunity now to stick to that deadline and really end animal testing in the best possible way here at the agency. But I also see something bigger, Administrator. I would like you to consider spearheading a Trump administration task force. That is NIH, FDA, DOD, all the federal agencies that have some use of animals in testing or research, and really look for a way to augment your resources collectively, because these promises are big promises, and it's going to take all of us working together. My last sort of shout out is to your team. Many of us have worked with many of you in this room for literally decades at this stage. Your hunger to end animal testing and promote what is superior science is the crux of the work that we do collectively. And I couldn't be more excited on behalf of the Humane World for Animals and Humane World Action Fund. Thanks for getting us back on track. Let's end animal testing now. Thank you. Dr. Amy Klippiner, who is with PETA, will now be our next speaker.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for the invitation to be here today and to say a few words. As Sarah said, my name is Amy Klippinger. I head up regulatory toxicology at People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA. Some of you might not know that we have a regulatory toxicology department, but we do. And we've been partnering with the EPA for decades now. The EPA has been a leader in advancing reliable and human-relevant non-animal testing approaches, and today's commitment sets a clear direction for the agency and its stakeholders to prioritize the best available science, meaning non-animal science that is reproducible, fit for purpose, and predictive, and that can enhance the quality of chemical assessments to better ensure protection of humans and our environment. This commitment is essential, especially when considering that each year tens of thousands of animals are used in toxicity testing conducted just to meet EPA requirements. Fortunately, advances in science and technology have provided opportunities to use modern non-animal approaches built on human biology and mechanistic information, many of which have been already shown to be equal to or more predictive than the animal tests that were developed more than half a century ago. Today, the EPA acknowledges that progress and sends a signal that companies can confidently bring forward non-animal data. And by releasing new guidance on non-animal skin irritation methods, the EPA has underscored that this commitment is not just words, it is taking action. PETA scientists have been proud to support and accelerate this work. We've collaborated with EPA experts to co-author scientific publications that have helped replace the use of rabbits in eye irritation tests, birds in dietary studies, and rats and mice in cancer tests. We've co-hosted online and in-person trainings on how to properly apply non-animal toxicity testing approaches. These are the kinds of partnerships that move the field forward, and they demonstrate what's possible when scientists and regulators work together towards shared goals. Today's commitment sets clear expectations, and its impact will grow as additional actions follow. We look forward to continuing to work alongside the EPA, helping advance reliable and relevant non-animal methods that protect people, animals, the environment, while strengthening chemical assessments in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. Next, I'd like to introduce Hans Rabe, the Vice President for the Institute for In Vitro Sciences.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm happy to have an opportunity to share some thoughts here. First, the Institute for In Vitro Sciences, the organization that I work for, has spent over nearly 30 years validating test methods, developing them, implementing them, using them in a day-to-day basis to help bring new products and chemistries to the marketplace without the use of animals in any shape or form. And we are very confident there are emerging technologies as well that we'll use in the future to replace animals in product and chemical safety testing. So we applaud the EPA for their plans announced today here to increase the reliance on new approach methodologies, or NAMs, which from our own work we know are often more reliable and human relevant than the animal tests. A good example are the human cell-based methods for skin irritation assessment. These models have been demonstrated and validated internationally and are routinely used in commerce for testing chemistries and products in lieu of using animals for the testing. We've had longstanding collaborative interactions with EPA scientists, ensuring that mutual confidence in these test methods could be established. We've done that with exchanges of technology and sharing of different test methods in our laboratory. Accordingly, we're encouraged to hear that the agency plans to pursue the use of several types of NAMs, or new approach methodologies, in its chemical assessments. We urge the regulated industry to follow the agency's lead and use available NAMs wherever possible. And during the transition, we would be pleased to continue to serve as a resource to the agency to provide our expertise, as well as to the industry, providing technical information and data interpretation, education, and training assistance, as well as providing downstream method evaluations and data interpretations as these methods are being implemented and used by reviewers. A successful transition to reliance on non-animal methods for the assessment of chemicals fulfills the mission of our organization, as well as many other organizations, and we call upon the wider toxicology community to support the EPA in its commitment to make the transition as quickly as possible with the adoption of robust and human-relevant, reliable, non-animal test methods for public health and the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans, and thank you to all of our speakers today. Once again, I appreciate you taking the time to come share the story and be with us for these next steps. At this time, I'll invite the administrator up to sign the memo that the EPA has reaffirming this commitment, in addition to our speakers, as well as Oliver here, who is a rescued beagle that most of you heard during most of the event. He's ready to get the signing done as well. So, Administrator. Yep. That concludes today's event. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great afternoon.